This is Kendra Cerrone, number 8 from the BHSU volleyball team, and you're listening to Inside the Hive.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Inside the Hive. We have another episode here. We're going to be talking some basketball and some track and field, and let's get right into it with Coach Thompson. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you, Colton?
Doing fantastic. We've had a pretty busy last few days. You guys had 3 games in 4 days. Can you tell us what it's like to play 3 games in 4 days?
It's a lot. I can tell you that. No, it's, you just put so much emotion into, our guys and staff. You put so much emotion into every game that, it takes a lot out of you mentally and physically. But, grateful for the opportunity to play basketball. And then, obviously that last game beating Regis at Regis, that was a huge one for us. So that was a great way to cap it off and kind of make it all worth it.
Absolutely. So starting off with the first game, Adams State at home. Looking at the records, it didn't seem like it was going to be, much of a competition. It looked like you guys had the clear win, but then if you were to dig in a little bit further, it was just kind of the polar opposite of your guys' schedule, which, it seems like a lot of wins were, 2 to 5 points, so close games, but they came out as wins for us, whereas for Adams State, it was the same, but it just went the opposite direction for them, so it still had the potential to be a great game. How do you prepare for something like that?
Yeah, I think your mindset, our student athletes' mindset is so important. We've said it all year that anybody in our conference can beat anybody, and it's shown up to be true. You look at Colorado Christian, who I think was last in the league. They beat Regis last weekend. After the Adams game, which I'm sure we'll get to, we lost to Pueblo, who has a poor record. So, just that maturity level of knowing that, you control so much on your own end, and you can be 40 points different yourself based on the performance your team puts out there. So with Adams State, they were a dangerous team, extremely athletic, one of the more athletic teams in the conference. They've had guys in and out of their lineup all year, so we were really trying to sell the fact that they're as talented as anyone in the conference, and they're a scary team, really dangerous in transition. And I think we took some things away. For the most part, played pretty darn well for about 25 minutes there, and we were up over 20 points with about 16 minutes left in that game. And then we kind of took our foot off the gas pedal, did some things that we weren't overly happy with, where we could have stretched that lead out, but they made it a game again, and then we found a way to close it off. So at the end of the day, I think we ended up winning by 19. Anytime you can do that, you're doing a lot of good things and doing more right than wrong, and there's a lot of positives to take away from that Adams State game.
Absolutely, and even looking at some of the numbers, of course, Joel Scott came out with 11 defensive rebounds. How important is that for the win, for getting those rebounds, for just being able to take away that second opportunity for Adams State to score?
Yeah, we're a little undersized, 1 through 5, and we've relied on Joel so much with his physicality inside. Everyone notices the offensive end, but what he does defensively is every bit as important, if not more. He protects the rim, he's a great post defender, and then he finishes possessions with boxing out and going after every rebound. And, it's to the point where I get on him when there's, he makes 1 or 2 mistakes the whole game, but he's been so relentless going to the defensive glass, and I think I'm not too much worried about individual stats, but I believe he's leading the country in defensive rebounding, or at least he has been most of the year. So that's a big part of what makes him so special, is how he rebounds, especially on the defensive end.
Absolutely, and I don't want to focus too much on one athlete for sure. And looking at our total defensive rebounds for the Adams State game, we had 32 defensive rebounds, and that just means that it's spread pretty well throughout the entire team. And that's actually something I was teaching in my class, was that when you're looking at stats, you don't want to see one person doing all the work, because one person gets injured, that person can't play for some reason, the team all of a sudden is just terrible. But looking at these stats from Adams State, it looks like a lot of the great stats that we need to win a game were spread out pretty well. So can you talk a little bit about how that works in your team dynamic?
Yeah, I think that's been a focus all year is we're not worried about who gets the credit or who who fills up the stat sheet. It's just game by game. Try to make the right basketball play. Everybody play as hard as you can defensively and offensively. Play together, share the ball, and kind of feed the hot hand or feed the mismatch. And I think our guys, for the most part, have bought into that. Sometimes it gets difficult to sustain that, but for the most part, I think we've been pretty selfless, and I think that's really led to different guys stepping up from night to night.
Perfect. Well, we go from this game to the next game where we were, I believe that was 13-1 going into CSU Pueblo, undefeated at home. Can you tell us a little bit about that first half of the first half? Can you tell us what happened and how you were trying to get out of that funk?
Well, I'd rather not, Colton. But no, I mean, it was as poor of a performance as we've had this year. We didn't bring it. I think we, contrary to how we played the whole year, we were not moving the ball well. We were trying to do too much individually, and a lot of guys fell into that department. Our intensity on the defensive end wasn't where it needs to be, and to go along with that, Colorado State Pueblo played extremely well, came in motivated, had a great game plan. Their guys executed it to a T, and it was just a perfect storm where everything went their way, and we certainly did not help ourselves. And it was, we showed a little fight in the second half, but it just wasn't enough. And disappointing performance, but I think it also woke us up, and hopefully will be a good thing for this stretch run down the end of the regular season.
Absolutely, and it's coming off of that I think kind of drove into the Regis game. Am I wrong in that thinking?
No, not at all. I think that helped us in the Regis game. I think we did a little soul searching. We really identified some issues and addressed them, and I think our guys responded. And really, really pleased with how they bounced back on Monday night against Regis.
Absolutely, because it could go one of two ways. They could be bummed. They could just kind of give up. And they decided to take the other route, which was come out firing against Regis because, they probably knew that was a big game. If they could pull that win off, that was huge. And so it was fantastic to watch that, and a great response, I feel like, to the Pueblo game. And I think you pretty much summed up the Pueblo game about as well as it can be. Things went their way. We needed to make some adjustments, and we did for the Regis game, which we'll move into next. And, Regis, we actually were able to break these stats down a little bit and kind of explain what happened here. And, as we talked about that spread amongst the team for having stats as far as, points, rebounds, things like that, if you look at Regis, they didn't have that spread. It seemed like, they had their couple star players, but there wasn't anyone really there wasn't much sharing going on as far as the good stats. But for us, if you look at ours, Sindhu came out with 18 points, Adam with 15, and Joel Scott with 13. And that's just off your starters. So can you tell us what the game plan was, how it was implemented going into Regis?
Well, Regis has a couple of guards that are as good as anybody in the conference. And, that's kind of been their identity, and those guys have carried them all year. And we really tried to do our best to make sure every shot was as contested as possible on Troy Brady and on Brian Dawson. And I think for the most part we did a great job on those two guys, and they rely on them so much. And we provided help with our other three guys on the court. And I think Bokel made us pay a little bit, but for the most part, they continued to play through their two main guys. And as the game went on, they just weren't able to sustain that level of scoring. And then for us offensively, we've always kind of tried to just do what the defense gives us and go with the hot hand from night to night, like we said earlier. And their plan was certainly to try to take Joel out and try to limit his touches. They provided no help off of him, kind of denied him the whole game, and then every time he touched it inside, they brought a double team. So a credit to Joel. He passed out of those double teams. Was no ego whatsoever. Just how can I help the team win? Became a great screener, and other guys stepped up and made him pay. And really, really pleased with our team effort on the offensive end. We had a lot of guys step up.
Absolutely. And speaking of stepping up, off your bench, you had Riker Cicerik, and it seems like he did a very good job during that game. What is it like to see your bench come out and play with intensity like that?
Yeah, he was absolutely huge. We don't win that game without Riker. He defended at a high level, made some key offensive plays, and it just, like you said, brought a great energy and a spark off the bench. We've had some guys that have been up and down throughout the year, and Riker's had some really good games and has struggled in some areas and some other nights. But boy, he was special against Regis, and just so proud of him and happy for him that he had a game like that in an important contest, obviously. So he really stepped up, and couldn't say more about him.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, this weekend you head off to Uccs and New Mexico Highlands. Can you tell us a little bit about their games and possibly how it's going to kind of shift from how we played these last 3 games to something maybe a little bit different with Uccs and New Mexico Highlands?
Well, I think UCCS is one of the most talented teams in the conference. They're 10-6. They're in the mix to, be an NCAA tournament type team. They certainly could win the RMAC tournament. Very talented group. Have great size. They lead the RMAC in rebounding. So we're going to have to be better on the glass than we were these last 3 games. They're a talented team. They defend really well, and their size will present a problem. And then New Mexico Highlands, a team that presses a lot, plays a different style, wants a really high-scoring type game. So our ability to not turn it over, control tempo, will be huge against them. And then they're a scary team. Highlands is a team that I thought was going to be, a top 4 type team early on. They've had some injuries, have had some stuff not go their way, and they're sitting at the bottom of the conference. So our maturity level and not overlooking them and playing it like it's, the playing against the best team in the league, that mentality is going to be really crucial against Highlands because they're a good team and it's a difficult place to play.
Perfect. Well, thank you for taking the time with us, Coach. We'll be coming up next with Coach Norrie for women's basketball. Stick around after this.
Your loved ones deserve the utmost comfort when visiting Spearfish. If you're looking for the perfect place to get the family together, the Spearfish Holiday Inn and Convention Center has the most updated and comfortable rooms in town. Make your reservations today at the Spearfish Holiday Inn and Convention Center.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Hive. Right now we are with Coach Norrie. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
Good.
So, this weekend, it wasn't quite where we wanted to be, but outside of the overtime win, you guys can shorten that game up. You know that, right?
Oh, man, yeah. Why do that when you get an exciting ending like that?
Yeah, no kidding. I guess people got some free basketball at the end of the night.
They got their money's worth on Friday, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of Friday, let's go into it. So Adams State came in, and they were 7-8 in the RMAC. We were 11-3. What was the mindset going into that game?
It was a scary game, for us, and it's a team that's really athletic, and they were on a hot streak. They won 4 of their last 5 games, and really playing well. They played Colorado School Mines to a 1-possession game. They were up 11 on Colorado Mines going into the 4th, and just ended up losing that game. And just playing really well, and athletically, the most athletic team in the league. And just I was concerned about how we were going to, keep them off the line and the free throw line and just take care of the ball, manufacture points, not turn it over, because they're a team that really likes to force tempo and get you out of, any kind of flow offensively. And so I thought we did some good things. I thought we really, managed it after the first initial shock of what they threw at us. Got in some foul trouble early, and I thought our reserves really did a nice job coming in and taking some minutes and really managing the game for us. And like you mentioned, what a thriller. Could have gone either way, but our gals really finished that game well and came through down the stretch with Ashley Beacom to Haley Weathersby on a last-second shot. And just a thriller of a game. It's a very memorable game, very memorable moment for our season, but really did a nice job finishing and making some free throws down the stretch too.
Absolutely. Speaking of free throws, it was 8 for 27, so the Jackets were at the line quite a bit that game. And how important are those free throws?
Man, it's just those are freebies, and it's a mental thing. Those are layups that you just have to knock down, and so I think late we hit some. We had a tough one that would kind of put us over the top. Gave them a shot late, but you know what? We made some big plays down the stretch, but free throws are when we're hitting our free throws, usually things end up really well for us,
Yep.
and it's kind of an indicator for us how the game's going to go.
Absolutely. So one thing that I was talking with Coach Thompson about was just being able to score off the bench. And that's one thing that Black Hills State, both men's and women's basketball, do well. And especially in this game, your bench accounted for 27 points. And you had two coming off. You had Nikki Van Wyk and Haley Weathersby, and they just scored very well that game.
Yeah, it's a huge advantage, especially when you get into crunch time and your season becomes shorter and you're playing consecutive games and you're playing COVID games, making up games. It's really important that you have fresh bodies and bodies that understand and know what was going on. And they were huge for us in our production. And Haley and Nikki have been both just huge performances for us. Down the stretch, and they've been really good this last half of the season, and both of them have really come through for us and hit big shots and defensively getting big rebounds and defensive plays too.
Absolutely. And just speaking of Nikki, she is a very accurate athlete. I mean, it's she shot 3 for 5 from the field goal range, 2 for 3 on 3-pointers, and 100% on free throws, which it's hard to find an athlete like that.
The thing about Nikki is, she's, like I said, she's been playing really, really well, and she's, a kid that started for us last year, some of the games, and she's really accepted a role in this second half of the season. I mean, she's really locked into, things and really gaining confidence in her game, and we're trying to get her more looks, and we want her to be more aggressive offensively. But the thing is she's a lockdown defender too, and she's just such a good athlete and so strong and powerful. So it's good to see her really step up for us. It's huge for us.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I try to look for in these games is, why was it so close? Did we play to their level? Was it something to where we could have played and just completely dominated them, or vice versa, where they could have completely dominated us? And one thing I was looking at is poor Ashley, is all I can say. Poor Ashley Beacom, because she went 0 for 6 from field goal, 0 for 5 from 3-point, and she got 3 for 4 on free throws. But with her past games, she is one of those players that is usually on fire. And, of course, every athlete is going to have an off night. And I started to add up the points, and I was like, man, if Ashley played to what she usually does, that would have been a completely different game. And I'm just happy that we came away with a win on it. But I just wanted to talk about, how do you get an athlete that maybe – coming off of a game like that, they're like, man, I didn't shoot very well, or, and some of it is just, it just won't fall some nights.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of typical, in this whole deal. Again, Ashley does so many things other than score that, she's always the timing of her passes. Defensively, she's probably our best defensive player. She's able to get to the free throw line. She's able to, get that big assist, or she just is always in the right place at the right time. And I try to preach to these ladies that you're gonna have bad days.
Yep.
We just can't have down days, and that's kind of the thing that we're accepting or kind of learning from, is that she'll bounce out of that. It's just a matter of getting confidence back, getting in the gym and just repping it out. And and every athlete goes through it, like you said. Again, it's just a matter of getting the mindset right. Even taking some time off and just not really. Sometimes kids think too much about it, and like, why is this happening and this and that, and sometimes it's just nice to just remember just moments, enjoy the moment, and really not get caught up in what's happening or why, or just a matter of regrouping yourself and getting the right frame of mind again, and which she will. It's just as far as athletes in general, I mean, everyone goes through it, and we see it every year from every athlete, and that's why too, like, they make such, our gals make such good stewards in the community, and just great workers in the community when because their ability and willingness to handle adversity, because it always comes our way. I mean, we're always dealing with, you look at it, being sick and recovering, there's tests and, just long trips and recovering from that, and, trying to apply for grad school and PT school and interviews while practicing, so there's so much that goes through these young ladies, and they manage it very well.
Absolutely. And, going off of Ashley Beacom, what's great about your team is it just seems like every one of them have a great head on their shoulders. And Ashley Beacom just strikes me as one of those to be like, oh yeah, off night, but
she's a rock.
I'm gonna come back.
Look who made the winning assist.
Exactly.
That kid is I got all the trust in the world in that kid, and she knows it, and it's she does so many things for us, and all our kids, a lot of our gals are just like that, and that's kind of why we're having the year we are. I mean, it's not like we have these big standouts. It's just we have a team that's willing to work hard, that is there for each other, that really plays good team ball and plays hard for each other, and that's kind of why we've had the success we've had.
Absolutely, and it's great to see teams go from a loss the night before, come back the next day, and big teams talk big talk about being able to say, yes, one game and then we move on. There's very few teams that actually do that. Whereas with Black Hills State women's basketball, it feels like they actually do that, where they come in, they might have lost a game the night before, but guess what? It's really a new game the next day.
Well, they're super competitive, and I think that they're good at they have some short memories. I mean, they're excited to play again, and going into like the Pueblo game. I mean, I think the emotional victory and then the physical victory from that Adams State game, and the fact that Pueblo didn't play the night before because there was a bomb threat at Shattern, having fresh legs. I think there's a lot of that, and these gals know they didn't play well. We know we didn't play well on Saturday. Did some good things. We tried to, just stay in it. It would have been nice to have, been down a possession or two to just give us a shot late, but that wasn't the case. And so, we this week we tried to kind of escape a little bit from the stresses of basketball and just winning and all the things that people, expect from these young ladies, and just kind of get away. And it was fun. We went bowling on Monday and just kind of had a good time together. And today is actually our first day of practice, getting back at it. And, it's that part of the season, that point where, it's we want our gals mentally fresh. And I think a lot of it, you mentioned the ability to bounce back, it has to do with fresh minds and the excitement of being back.
Right, and moving into the Pueblo game, it was a 14-point loss, but at the same time, those 14 points, like we talked about with the Adams State game, they could have came from anywhere, and we could have won that game. And what ifs, what could have beens, they just need to be passed on, just like you were saying with do the game, move on. What are some of the things that you saw in that Pueblo game that maybe you could take as like learning opportunities?
Yeah, I think the Pueblo game, and just number one, I thought our bench again. I thought they came out and gave us a big spark early. I felt like the fatigue, and I felt mentally, physically, we were tired, and it wasn't necessarily I think it was just mentally. I wouldn't say on a scale of 1 to 10, that was a game where we're at like a 6, and unfortunately it was kind of a missed opportunity for us. But defensively, we tried throwing different things at them and probably a little too much, maybe, just trying to manufacture some points on the offensive end. The shots weren't falling, free throws weren't falling, and so anytime that happens, you try to figure out ways to score on the defensive end just to get any kind of momentum. And we never could get we would get close, and then they'd come back and score a big bucket or get a big stop. I don't remember all the stats in front of me, but I don't know how many points they scored off just turnovers or second chance points. But their post inside hurt us. She's a good player and just really got us. We just missed shots, and we just couldn't get over that hump. And so that's a game where you just kind of wipe your hands and move on.
Yep, and I get that completely. Speaking of moving on, this weekend you guys hit the road again with Uccs and New Mexico Highlands. What's the plan for those games? Two
good teams. I mean, teams that are, every time you play anyone in the RMAC on the road, it's going to be it's a challenge. And Uccs, both teams aren't, they're hard to figure out. They're just good at what they do at keeping the game simple. But both teams are good in transition. Both teams have, I'd say UCCS likes to go work through the paint more than Highlands. But Highlands is probably more dribble drive heavy, but they're both teams that will mix up their defenses and try to get you off balance that way, and they're both capable of really going off if you allow, if you're not on it defensively. So got our hands full, but it'll be good to get back together and get playing again, and be able to bounce back from that Saturday's game against Pueblo.
Perfect. Alrighty, Coach. Well, thank you for taking the time with us and sharing your opinions on the games, and we wish you luck this weekend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, stick around. We have more Inside the Hive with track and field coming up right after this.
Heard through word of mouth that Joe and Karen were looking at retiring, and my wife and I looked into it and decided we wanted to do something different. I knew the business would work by visiting with Joe and Karen, looking at things, but I needed a bank. I went and visited with Pioneer Bank and set it up the way we wanted, and everything worked. So they've been great. The rest is history. Here I am. Pioneer Bank and Trust is local.
Welcome back to Inside the Hive. I'm here with Coach Metagovich. Coach, how are you?
Doing great.
Awesome. So you're going to be headed down to Kansas this weekend. Well, actually, I guess it's going to be Thursday and a Saturday meet, correct?
Yeah. It's a 2-day separate meet with a day in between. So it's a great setup to try to run fast times on both days. So yep, down in Washburn, Topeka, Kansas.
Awesome. So with the team being in two different places, because there's going to be a meet also in Brookings, how does that work for someone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so first of all, luckily I have two great assistant coaches, so they'll be with, most of the distance squad will be at Brookings with the track team, so they'll be able to take the rest of the distance kids there, athletes, and compete there, versus I'll have a few of the athletes down in Washburn. And the main differences in those meets basically is just sometimes like the Washburn meet has a little bit, I guess, in the 5K, 3Ks and miles, just a little bit, I guess we call it top end depth in those races. So that will definitely help kind of the couple of top athletes we have on the distance side, hopefully to have a better chance for school records, possible national qualifiers, and everything like that.
So with the competition that you're talking about, where are some of the athletes coming from when they're going to Washburn that you're going to compete against?
Yeah, so the Washburn looks like for this weekend it's some partial squads and full squads. It looks like UCCS will have a full squad. Adams State, and Pittsburgh State and a whole bunch of other schools, possibly Augustana. Those schools will have partial squads. There's a whole bunch of like other kind of squads with distance runners that'll be going down there to make a very good meet overall when you add all the teams together. So kind of all around that mid part of the country. So some everywhere from northern Texas up kind of to our region will have some athletes participating in the meet.
Awesome. So with, believe it or not, outdoor track and field is going to be starting up here rather soon. I mean, within the next month and a half, correct?
Yep.
So with that in mind, is there any changes in the training or how the athletes are getting ready for the spring season?
There's a few changes. One thing is outdoors, being outside. When the weather is pretty decent, usually the distance athletes are outside regardless, other than we call them our track workout days. I like them getting used to the tighter turns of indoors. So when we transition to outdoors, I prefer them, if we can, to always be outside, because once we're back to outdoors, we have to battle the elements of wind, weather, everything like that. So they need to be used to that. So we'll transition to trying to be all outside for the whole season, hopefully, based on the weather. The other changes are there's different events outdoors. We add the 10K and steeple. So in a way, training, especially the steeplers, they have to start doing more drills and getting used to something that's completely different than what they do indoors, since we don't offer that. And also with the 10K just being a lot longer race. So some of their training changes a little bit, but then just kind of where we're training also, hopefully we could be outside every single day. So a little bit of adjustments for sure.
You know, you're talking about battling the elements and being up in the upper Midwest. Does that pose any challenges as far as training goes? Obviously, you know, there's that weird winter storm that'll hit sometimes in May or April. What challenges outside of maybe those stray weather patterns do you face with trying to go outdoors up here in South Dakota?
Yeah, I mean, with the weather, it could be very unpredictable. So, I mean, even if there's, not a storm, sometimes it could be windy in the springtime. And so it's adjusting what we need to. Obviously, in the race, they could be running into a wind every single lap, possibly. So it's adjusting and being able to kind of battle through that. But we can also change workouts, too. Sometimes where we could put the wind at our back. We could go outside town, choose a dirt road, and have the wind at their back. And we call it help pushing them for a little bit of speed training. Or on a track, we could go just half a lap, we call it 200 meters, and have the wind at their back. So there's ways we could take it as advantage, but then sometimes we also just have to get used to that, because in a race, we can always just hope it'll be perfect weather, but anywhere in this region, and to be honest, most places, it's very unpredictable. You won't know what you're going to get until you get to that week weather-wise, so you just have to be ready for everything.
Right, and up here, the weather is so unpredictable. I mean, the next day it could change from, the sunshine and 75 to gloomy and rainy and snowy and what have you. So, being prepared for that is tough, especially with outdoor track, because a lot of this is very technique-based. And so when you go into things like the pole vault or the long jump or things like that, when you go into the field events too, it gets tougher. And then also on the student athletes that are doing the distance runs like the steeplechase and those longer races, it gets tough on them as well, because then you got the steeplechase, you have that big tank of water, which I still don't get. You still have that, but it just makes it harder on them, because there's nothing worse than being cold and wet at the same time and trying to run at the same time.
Yeah, I could definitely add, you picture, they're doing a steeplechase, they're already going to get wet from the water jump every single lap, and if it's also raining or snowing, it's not a pleasant feeling by any means, and it's also, you're talking about the other events, the pole vault, all this stuff. But same thing with steeple and the fact you're trying to step off a barrier. So if it's wet, that changes it. So for us, practicing sometimes so they're ready for it. We hope, maybe it doesn't happen. We have good weather for all mates, but they have to be ready for those conditions. So, the athlete just doesn't freak out when it does possibly happen. They're ready for possible, diversity throughout the race. Definitely.
Right. Are there any events that could get moved indoors, like for facilities like ours where we have the field house, at the ready? Is there a possibility of moving any of those events inside?
Don't quote me on this, but I believe at least the pole vault and it has in the past at some RMAC championships moves inside, just because with crosswinds and stuff like that, you can move. In the distance world, we're always stuck outside. Oh,
that stinks.
Doesn't change anything for us, but I believe the pole vault can be moved inside depending on the weather. Most events are kind of stuck outside. It's kind of a meet decision. If there was just too much snow, obviously lightning or anything like that would cancel until further notice. Right. But in a distance side, it's kind of, it depends on what the coaches come up with. Because cross country, you're just kind of, even if it was snowing, doesn't matter. It's only lightning that really stops the race. And so on the distance side, it's kind of the same thing. But a lot of times a meet, if they knew there's going to be heavy snow, they would just kind of postpone the meet in general, so we could get through all the events, hopefully.
Yeah, we've had to do that a couple times in the past. Those freak snowstorms. And going back to indoor, because I'm going to save a little bit of the outdoor for the outdoor conversations. With the indoor now coming up on the end of the season, are you starting to see the athletes peak in their training, or what are you kind of looking for from them? Yeah. So for us, getting closer to the indoor season, for a lot of them, they're becoming they're getting speedier. They're getting, they already have, their fitness is already been working on it for months, and now they're coming upon their speed. And the times are definitely showing. The meets, they're getting faster and faster. So we hope this is a big week for us, for all the athletes, regardless of where they're going. A lot of it pays off this week on, for sure. All their training, we're hoping most of we call them their personal best are hopefully happening this week, school records, stuff like that. This is what we've been kind of gaming up for from this week on. So in theory, most of them have been feeling pretty good and should be able to run their fastest times of the season. Awesome. So who can we expect to see at this track meet in Washburn?
Yeah, so there'll be 3 athletes. So it'll be Exil, Morrow, Ruby, and Keith will be going down there. They'll be running Exil will be running the 5K. The other 2 athletes will be running the mile and 3K possibly. So, and they get 2 opportunities. This is a bank track down there. Be Keith's first time running on bank tracks. A little bit different, but bank tracks run very, very fast, for sure, and especially with the competition. And they'll be definitely, I think, run very well. All 3 of them have chances at the school records and possibly more national qualifiers and stuff like that.
Well, that'd be awesome to see, Coach, and thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We'll be back with more Inside the Hive right after this.
Your vehicle is the lifeline to work and play. Finding your next upgrade can be complicated and expensive. You shouldn't settle for a vehicle at a random sales lot. Choose a dealer who guides you to a better decision. For over 90 years, the people at Uccs and Spearfish have helped countless people like you make better vehicle decisions. Click on the link to see what's available, then schedule a test drive to see what's possible with Uccs Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram on West Jackson in Spearfish.
All right, and welcome back to Inside the Hive. Right now we're sitting with Coach Seth Mischke. Coach, how you doing?
Well again,
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, this weekend you guys head to Brookings for the SDSU Classic Open, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, it's a long one, but that's about right. Yeah.
So what are you looking for from the athletes this time of year?
Well, this meet's kind of one that we gear the majority of our training for before conference. So, you kind of look around the country at all different levels. Kids have been back from break for 4-ish weeks, They kind of got the sludge worked off from the holiday break, and it's a really good weekend to try and chase something, i.e. a PR, a great time, a qualifying mark, something along those lines. So for us, it really is a scenario where we expect our kids to feel good, we're fit, and we're ready to hopefully produce, some good performances relative to them as an individual. So it's a big one, big meet, big track, great facility, and you can't ask for much more than that in terms of a competition. Hopefully when you feel good, because you want that environment.
Absolutely. So with the PRs, with the qualifying times, this is kind of the track meet is what you're saying, correct?
It's one of their best opportunities, before conference, which is a whole different level of excitement and environment. But it's the best meet that we go to prior to that to really feel that vibe and get that energy level up and basically kind of get it done or don't get it done, you know, and kind of use that energy and that nervousness and that excitement to hopefully produce good things.
Very good. So with the athletes going, of course, this week it's going to be the 2 track meets. We have a few athletes going to Oklahoma.
Kansas.
Kansas, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, somewhere down there.
It's flat and, you know, whatever. Yeah. Tornado Alley.
Yep. Topeka. That's right. Topeka,
that's the
Kansas. So with the team kind of splitting up, going to different areas because there are specifics to those athletes to perform better in each situation. Most of our field events are going to be going to Brookings. And so what are you kind of looking for from our high jumpers, long jumpers, pole vaulters, throwers, things like that?
Yeah. So I would say this track at STSU, it's 300 meter indoor. And so it's very good for, you know, your distance races. You know, we come down in elevation going out there. We get an opportunity to get on the track, and that's that size. And typically it's been a great place for our distance kids to run really well. You know, we'll do well in the 2 and the 4. 60 is a 60 no matter where you're at, right? For the most part. So it produces some good opportunity there, certainly. On the field event side of things, it's equal to, if not a little bit better, in terms of what it provides. You know, long jump, triple runways are good. There's a double pit scenario where they're kind of side by side, so they can get through big fields relatively efficiently, which is always a good thing. The throwing area, you know, 2 rings as well, and big wide open spaces there, throwing on the field turf there in the middle of the track. Always produces some good things. Then 2 pole vault pits and 2 high jump pits if necessary, you know, depending on entry on field sizes. So, you know, field event people typically are going to have another good opportunity. You know, like I said, it's a big facility. You kind of feel like you're outside, but you're inside kind of a deal. And again, some kids like that feeling. So, you know, from a field event standpoint, certainly we have some quality kids on both areas on the track and on the field, but it will be exciting to watch both get after it this weekend for sure.
Perfect. So you were talking about the 60 just being a 60 in the same place. We're going to be moving into outdoor track and field here, you know, relatively soon, believe it or not.
Hopefully,
yeah. Hopefully the weather decides to hold out on us.
Yeah.
So what are they doing now to kind of prepare them for the outdoor? And the reason I bring up the 60s is 60s because with outdoor, you know, the 100 is 100, and so we go on from that. How are they preparing with their 60 as a 60 to prepare for that 100 as 100?
Well, you know, you're setting up the 60-meter race a little bit differently technically and ideologically in terms of when you want to be fast and how you're going to maintain that speed. The 100's different, certainly, different race plan relative to that, but it's certainly something that you can transition into from a 60-meter mentality in moving into outdoor. It's not going to happen immediately first meet in necessarily, but, you know, lucky for us, we were outside on a Monday doing our workout, you know, and it was 55 degrees around here. And so we got on the home stretch there outside and got the vibe, got the feel a little bit. So, you know, I think the kids that we have here certainly have done track, you know, middle school through high school. And so, you know, they know what outdoor track and field is about relative to that. And so the transition from a 60 to 100 is really just about, you know, trying to produce that effort for a little bit longer in a straight line. You know, the 200 indoor, you're running kind of an oval / circle.
Right.
You know, outdoor, it's one curve and one long straightaway, you know, so that's a different ball game, certainly there mentally. Whereas 100 is, hey, I just got to, it sounds weird or counterintuitive, but I need to prepare / pace this 100 a little bit differently than I might go crazy fast as I can, almost even in that 60-meter scenario. So there's certainly different race strategies, plans, again, all kind of relative to the individual, but that transition that needs to be made is something that we can get done between the end of indoor and the beginning of our actual outdoor season competitively. We have about a 2-3 week period there where we're going to try to be making that change crossover for kids mentally, and hopefully the weather works out enough that we can get outside a good number of times before that first outdoor meet that we host in March.
Yes, nothing like the wonderful Black Hills bipolar weather that we have up here.
It's got its own deal, that's for sure.
It definitely makes up its own mind. Well, Coach, thank you for taking the time with us and talking a little bit about the SDSU Open, Classic Open. I still can't figure out which one it is. It's one of those two. But
it's a lot, and it'll be good. So
yeah, perfect. Well, Coach, we wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to hearing about the results. And of course, the live results are going to be available, and you'll be able to check in with all of our student athletes as well. Coming up next, we will have signing day insight from Coach Breske. So stick around. We'll be back after this.
While you're visiting Spearfish, stop into Lucky's 13 for half-price drinks and appetizers every weekday from 4:30 to 6. Need an exciting venue to host your next event? Look no further than our party room. Unwind at Lucky's 13, just off exit 14 in Spearfish.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Hive. Right now we're sitting with Coach Breske, and we're going to be talking signing day. And Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Colton. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, starting it off, originally on signing day, we had 29 athletes. Currently, we have 34 total as of right now, with a few of them coming from California, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Texas, and a couple from Alaska and Nevada, with primarily a lot of it being offensive linemen, linebackers, and some defensive linemen. Can you go through the signing day process for us real quick and just kind of tell us what you guys have gone through to get to this point?
Absolutely. So as we began our recruiting, back in would have been about last March of 2021, it's identifying needs. That's the number one thing. So let's identify what position groups do we need to solidify. How about our numbers? Do we like our numbers as far as where we're at the defensive end position, at the tight end position? And so we're very specific about who we're going to go target as far as that goes. And then it's, all right, let's divide and conquer. So we divvy up the regions. This year we had 2 coaches on the ground in California. I had 1 coach who was covering Colorado, who dipped into Nevada a little bit as well. J.B. Brown, our defensive coordinator, was in the Salt Lake City area this year, was in there for the 2nd year in a row. So it's kind of an interesting territory for us.
Yeah.
But we figure let's recruit closer to where we're playing, get into some of those metropolitan areas to increase our likelihood to find some really, really good players. Unfortunately, out in the western part of South Dakota and eastern Wyoming, it's some of the least populated places in our nation. And
yep.
Finding those kids, it's actually pretty easy to find them. They stick out in such a great way when they're phenomenal players. But unfortunately, they stick out so well that UW will come scoop those guys up. Montana State will come get those guys, even some of the bigger Colorado schools. So we just always got to be, trying to recruit our area, recruit this region, this locale. But at the same time, I told my staff we're going to focus largely in those distance areas. And so I'm really proud of the work that those guys put in turning up these 34 recruits.
Yeah, and you're talking about that competition, and the worst part is not only do you have University of Wyoming, bigger Colorado schools, but you have SDSU, USD, Augustana, those bigger schools that also recruit heavily from the South Dakota area. And just like you were saying, this is the most unpopulated part of the United States, and with that, you can look at a map of cell tower coverage, and there's a big old hole right over where we're at. And that's just the nature of the beast. And so overcoming that is very difficult. But that's also why you're focusing on those bigger metropolitan areas, those distance places. It's not because you don't want to focus here. It's because the competition to get those good athletes from here is so fierce.
It is. I remember when I first took this job, I was talking with Kristen Carmichael, our volleyball coach, who Kristen and I go way back. We were classmates together here at BH. We were both student athletes at the same time. And when I was taking this job, I asked her about recruiting, and she says, you might as well wave the white flag to East River recruiting. And I took that as a challenge, and challenge accepted. And shoot, I pounded the pavement out there in that 2020 spring and, turned up essentially about 4 walk-ons, okay, out of maybe offering 30 kids out there. So I'm not necessarily ever going to wave the white flag in our great state. I'm going to recruit those guys every single year. But you're right, Colton. I mean, there's multiple institutions. You could probably get close to counting them up on 2 hands down I-29 and coming west on I-90 from Sioux Falls. There's so many places so many places to choose besides Black Hills. And to be honest with you, we just don't have the name recognition with the eastern side of the state like I'd like to have. And I think we'll have that in a couple of years, and it'll be easier for us to sign some South Dakota kids. But there's no reason to wave the white flag, so to speak. We're always going to recruit those guys, and already starting to plan, getting into the Rapid City schools and heading over to Sioux Falls here in a couple of weeks to go visit with some of those high school coaches over there. But, I will say it is a breath of fresh air to, recruit kids out of this region who don't have some preconceived notions about Black Hills State football. To recruit kids who are excited about something fresh and something new. It's been good. It's been really, really good to bring kids into campus who haven't seen spearfish and haven't seen the Black Hills, National Forest before, and they walk onto campus and they say, holy smokes, this is an incredible place.
Yeah. And, that is one of our biggest selling points is we have that great geographic location as far as being outdoors. If you can find those people that want to be outdoors, it's a great place to be. Problem is with that comes isolation. When recruiting those kids from the metropolitan areas, from those distance places, it's not as easy to fly home necessarily unless you want to drive the 6 hours to Denver or, fly at a Rapid Connect to somewhere, or else, right. You want to go somewhere, you want to see a concert, you want to do something that those metropolitan people might be used to. Right. That's another hindrance to the recruiting process.
It certainly is. No, you're exactly right. And that's why I think it's important to bring these kids in on visits and just shoot them straight is, hey, we are not some metropolitan area. I don't even think we can use the word city when we talk about spearfish. This is a town, you know? And I think bringing those guys in on visits, the ones that enjoy their trip, enjoy their official visits and end up committing, they know what they're getting. I remember coaching at another Division II institution as a graduate assistant coach, and we'd probably sign 20 or so kids sight unseen. We wouldn't see them in person, and they would never see us in person. They never would come on a visit. They'd land in campus in a small town, and they'd leave. They'd quit. They said, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Mm-hmm. And so we use the example, hey, you'll never go buy a car without test driving it first. Why would you choose to spend 5 years in your life in a place that you'll never come to check out and come to visit? So I think the official visit process is huge. And, our motto is get them on campus. If we can get student athletes to come on campus, whether you're from California, Texas, Colorado, or even South Dakota, get them on campus. This campus shows so well. There's so many great people in this town and at this university. We can seal the deal. Typically I think our rate's right around 70% of the kids that come on visits we end up getting commitments from.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And, you brought up a great point, retention. That is huge right now. And it's not just Black Hills State University that has a problem with retention. It's across the board, across the United States. Right now, universities struggle with retention. So it's not only just getting those student athletes to sign, it's getting those student athletes to sign and stay.
Yep.
Is a huge problem right now.
Yeah.
So with these 34 signees, what is the plan to keep them here?
There's a few things, and you're exactly right, is right now with the advent of the portal, the transfer portal that is, students get to kind of live out this grass is greener on the other side theory in real life. They get to test the waters and check out and see, hey, I'd love to go get recruited again.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not playing, or maybe I don't like this town, or maybe I don't gel with the coaches or the players, whatever it might be. Maybe I miss home and I want to get somewhere closer to home. Maybe it's I think I can play at a higher level, or maybe this level's too high for me. I need to play at a different level.
Yeah.
And so, with the advent of the portal, I think it makes it even, more easy for student athletes to jump ship. Unfortunately, before their time comes, I was one of those athletes. I actually tried to jump ship when I first got to Black Hills State. My deal was I didn't think I was playing the position I needed to play. Right. And thank goodness I had some amazing coaches who pulled me aside and said, you're making a terrible decision. Stick it out. I had some teammates who stepped up, which was even more powerful for me to hear as a young person. Say, hey, you're being selfish. You need to stick this out. And I stuck it out and had a great 10 semesters here and 4 seasons as a starter. And, with that portal being right there at your fingertips, all it takes is you to walk into the compliance guy's office and say, hey, I'm not enjoying this. I need to be put in the portal. And a lot of times, You know, I was just going through the portal last night. I think we currently have 5 athletes in there. There's teams in our conference that have 5 times the amount,
Yep.
you know, of our team. So I like to think that our retention is a little bit better. And I'm hearing a lot of this from college coaches right now. You have to recruit your players that are on your team every single
Yep.
year. And that's becoming more and more of a reality. And, you know, I don't know if I agree with that so much as, you know, continuing to recruit is technically, in my opinion, trying to convince them that they need to stay or this is a place for them to be. I think really that retention is a byproduct of treating them the right way, right? Providing them respect, resources, letting them know that they're cared for, letting them know that we love them. You know, that's something that we tell our guys every chance we get is, hey, man, love you. Hope you're doing great, man.
Making them feel like an actual person, making them feel treasured.
Treating them like a family member, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think that's our best mode to increase our retention on our football team. And then it is paying attention to those red flags in recruiting. You know, let's not sign a kid who's got a 1.9 GPA that's going to be, you know, on the cusp of being eligible every semester. We have our precious recruiting dollars are just that, you know, they're precious and we can't be spending money on a ton of risky guys. I think every class we can take some, you know, especially if they're a pretty amazing player and a good person and that character reference is there. But, you know, if there's more than one red flag in this day and age, man, we're moving to the next guy.
Right. You got to have something that matches Black Hills State because not only you know, are you recruiting to have the best team on the field, but they have to be a great team player off the field as well. I mean, you can't have, just like you were saying, those risky kids. The kids that might not even be able to play at all because they're not eligible.
Right.
So, yeah, you hit it on the head with you need to recruit not only for the position but also for the person. And so that's great. Hey, Coach, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you with more about signing day. We'll be back right after this.
Your loved ones deserve the utmost comfort when visiting Spearfish. If you're looking for the perfect place to get the family together, the Spearfish Holiday Inn and Convention Center has the most updated and comfortable rooms in town. Make your reservations today at the Spearfish Holiday Inn and Convention Center.
Welcome back. We're just talking with Coach Breske about signing day and the 34 signees that we're up to right now. Original signing day number was 29, and the list just keeps on growing, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get into some of the athletes that signed up for Black Hills State and the newest family members of the Yellow Jack family. So far, we have, what is it, 16 from California. So we were talking about that distance. Can you take us through some of the recruits from California?
Absolutely. Well, we had 2 coaches on the ground there. Coach Joe Ashfield, our pass game coordinator, quarterback coach, was in Northern California, traipsing through all that area, visiting high schools for a few weeks in December. Southern California was our offensive coordinator, O-line coach Ben Blake. Both those guys did a really good job. Mining, that's kind of the verb we use, mining up recruits.
Especially in California.
That's the thing, is there's so many kids out there. And I'm telling you, what the portal's done for a school like us is it's really increased our chance to have a shot at those recruits. You know, a lot of those recruits were looking to go to Cal Poly and go to Sac State and go to University of San Diego. A lot of those guys now, you know, they don't have those opportunities because schools like that are going to look to the portal before they'll look to a high school kid. And I get it. You know, kids inside the transfer portal are you know, technically proven players. They've already been out of college and, you know, rolling the dice with your scholarship money on high school student athletes doesn't always pan out. But for us, I mean, that's what we're going to major in. We're going to major in that. Easily our ratio will be 90-10, if not more. With our high school to transfer ratio. And so, you know, we do have some really good kids coming in from California, some offensive linemen. You've got Jacob Bell, who's a really good offensive lineman in California, plays center. We also have Payton Mays is an offensive lineman who plays center in California. Payton's a little bit not as lengthy as Jacob, but does some really good stuff. He's very explosive, a little bit of a sawed-off player, you could say, but you know, these kids are already like, hey, when can I come up this summer? I'm ready to come start working out with the team. Who else are we looking at here? Signed a kicker. It was really good to sign Ryan Ewing. a kicker, especially with the loss of Jacob Parks to graduation. It's the best way to lose an athlete is
Yep, absolutely.
lose them to graduation, and I know Jacob's getting married here in a couple months. So we did need to find another kicker to add to that class. We returned Coleman Chapman, our freshman kicker, who didn't see any action for us this last year. He's currently doing hurdles with the track team this semester. But between Chapman and this new signee, Ryan Ewing, those guys will be battling out for all the kickoff, place kicking, and punting duties. So really excited to see Ryan. Ryan's a soccer player by nature.
Oh, yeah.
He actually was playing multiple positions on his football team, and when they needed a kicker, head coach kind of said, hey, does anyone have kicking experience? And his teammates were really quick to raise their hand for Ryan and say, Ryan can kick. And he did a wonderful job for them this year. And so we're excited to have him. Looking down this list, we've got Gavin Galzotti, who's a tailback, undersized tailback, but very, very quick. We were really fortunate to sign some strong tailbacks this year between Gavin Galzotti. I'm looking at Isaiah Presley, Cameron Goods. Hope I'm not leaving anyone else out. And the good thing about those running backs is they're all different sizes. They all bring different skill set to the table. So excited about that. Where else am I looking? So California was really good to us. It was really, really good to us this year. And I tell you what, it's the same respect as athletes have to come to campus to see what they're getting into. We have to go to their campus to see what we're getting into.
Right.
And so spending that extra money to be on the road and purchase flights for coaches and hotels and rental cars and Ubers and all that stuff, it's such a good investment to know what we're getting, to go down and develop those relationships with those high school coaches so we can have a good recommendation. For every one kid that we signed on signing day, there was probably easily another 8 to 10 kids that we say no to.
Right.
That we either the film's not there, or the coach recommendation isn't there, or maybe the size isn't there. So money well spent.
Absolutely.
Money definitely well spent.
And then moving on into, let's see, Colorado. You managed to get 5 out of there, and that's very good to get it out of a state that is heavily RMAC schools.
Absolutely. The competition is always going to be stiff through there. We're able to sign 2 kids out of Bear Creek, Caleb Saseda and Blake Parrish. Was excited to get a kid out of Colorado Springs this year, and Owen Growney. Owen's a high academic, long kid. Actually, on the visit, I misspoke and called him a safety. He said, Coach, I'm an outside linebacker. That's right, Owen. I apologize. And you watch Owen Growney's film, he's extremely twitchy and fast. I think if he comes into camp the right way, will have an opportunity to maybe come help us out right away.
Oh, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, he's a good player, a really, really strong player. Tanner Fleck will be an offensive lineman for us. I'm excited to get him out here as well. Who else? Coco Ziello Perez, a defensive lineman. Excited to get him out here too. And who else from Colorado? I've got my list right here. Colton, give me a second.
Oh, you're good.
Tanner Fleck, Owen Growney, Blake Parrish, Caleb Saseda. I think I hit on all of them.
I think you did. Saseda, did you talk about him?
Yeah, Saseda. Saseda's an interesting cat. Really got to enjoy spending some time with him and his family when they came on their visit. A kid who's extremely twitchy, plays kind of all over the place. I think he, might be an outside linebacker for us, maybe even a safety if he shows that he can run well come fall camp. Excited to have 2 guys coming from the same school. That helps with retention as well.
Absolutely.
We did a good job in Colorado. We had Coach Mike Smith, our D-line coach, special teams coordinator, down in Colorado, traveling up the interstate through all the schools between Colorado Springs and the north suburbs of Denver.
What about managing to pull away 3 from Wyoming?
Yeah, so my guys from Wyoming this year, let me just search them up real quick.
So the first one is Mikey Bates.
So Mikey was a guy that moved to Cody, Wyoming. He came out here on a school visit and said he wanted to be a Yellow Jacket. We invited him to come join us for fall camp, so I'm excited to see what Cody's going to bring to the table. Kobe Case familiar name. That's Dylan Case's younger brother.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah, Dylan Case's younger brother. Dylan came out this summer for an official visit before the season started. Did a little workout for us. Did a really, really good job on his visit. Dylan has played wide receiver. He's played quarterback. He's played outside linebacker for Douglas. He's kind of been all over the field. So
someone who really understands the offensive game.
Yeah, he does. He really does. And we had talks about, are you going to play offense? Are you going to play defense? But at the end of the day, I think I like how he tackles. I think he's physical and aggressive. So we're going to play him at linebacker.
Oh, that'll be great.
And then Hayden Pafford was a kid actually who he took a break from football through some of his early high school career and then got back into football this summer going into his senior year. Chad Goff, former BH alum, is the head coach at Cheyenne East, brought his team to camp this summer and was able to see Hayden Pafford running around playing linebacker and tight end. We were going to take him at either position. I kind of said, where do you think you want to play? He wants to play tight end. I said, awesome, man. So Hayden's a real intense kid. Does a really good job for Cheyenne East, and we're excited to have some more Wyoming kids on the team.
Awesome. So one thing I did want to point out is you recruited 8 offensive linemen.
Yep.
So heavy, looking to build that up quite a bit. What were you looking for from these offensive linemen that we maybe haven't touched on yet? Because we talked about, the general idea of recruiting, but for offensive linemen, what were you really looking for this year?
I wouldn't even say length. Length is the first thing I always want to say, but even as I look through our numbers, we signed a 6'2" kid, a 6'1" kid, another 6'2" kid, and a 6-foot kid in Mikey Bates. With that, you got a 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", and another 6'4" athlete. Length isn't the number one thing. It's really about athleticism with us. You watch us play football, everyone knows that we're going to run stretch, what a lot of people call pin pull sweep. So we have to have mobile offensive linemen that can get out and run, that are great at the point of contact, that love to play fast and get off the rock. So I think it's more recruiting the offensive lineman who's got the weight, not necessarily always the length, but has the weight to play. Mm-hmm. And then is athletic, man. Coach Blake and I are both offensive line coaches. He's our current offensive line coach. That was my previous career before I took over this job. I was an offensive line coach for 10 seasons, and I think that him and I would both agree you'd rather take an athletic kid over some lanky kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Athleticism reigns supreme.
And looking at your O-line, no one is less than 255. So yeah, you're talking about that weight, but also that athleticism with that weight. It's not just about pure weight, pure height. It's about athleticism that can control both the weight and the height to the best of being able to, like you said, have the speed to go out and then be great at point of contact. Looking at defense now, 6 linebackers, 6 defensive linemen. What do you that's 12 for defense. So are you looking to really build up the defense and start, having a new technique with that, or are you looking to build on what you already have?
It's really looking to build on what we already have. We have some really tremendous linebackers coming back for us this next coming season. Guys that stick out to me coming back. You got Ryder Blair. You've got Aaron Teal that did a good job for us. Hunter Stevens coming back. With that, younger guys filling in those roles. Jaden Marquez did a really good job for us playing this last season. Hope to potentially have Dylan Case back, from his injury. But really it's about just continuing to sign solid athletes. Of these linebackers coming in, there's a few of those guys that might challenge to play this first year. But more and more as these years go by, Colton, we're going to get into a point where we're not going to need these freshmen to play because we're recruiting great numbers, because we're recruiting high school student athletes, and we're doing it in a chronological sense where we're not going to have holes to fill and say, hey, I hate sitting here with freshmen in my office, incoming freshmen, high school seniors, and saying, hey, man, we might need you to play next year.
Yeah.
A little bit here at Black Hills State, that's the situation that we're in right now because of the stance that we've taken to recruit high school student athletes and build this thing to last and not just build it to flip. But there are definitely some names of some guys I look at this list. Sebastian O'Farrell might challenge to play this first year. He's another guy. He had 182 tackles his senior year. Was a lifelong rugby player from Alaska. I think he's a kid that could come in and challenge to play this first year. Owen Growney, who we spoke about earlier. Truman Allo. Truman didn't come up on a visit. Truman was one of the kids that Coach Brown recruited out of the Utah area. Tremendous film. I'm talking tremendous film. A really, really good ability. We were on him and his cousin. His cousin ended up, I believe, going to Dixie State. And Truman stuck with us through this and signed. And so I'm excited to get a chance to meet Truman face to face. Based on his film, I wouldn't say, there's a chance he could play this year.
Amazing. Amazing, Coach. Is there anyone else you want to touch on for your signing class for this year?
I think that we hit on a lot of the names. I hope I'm not leaving too many people out. Defensive line, again, was a point of emphasis. I feel like a really good get for us this year was Matthew LaFaso out of Syracuse High School in Utah. Matthew's 6'3", 250. I think he'll have a chance to push to play this year. Isaac Ruiz, 6'1", 225 out of Mission Hills, California. He might have a chance to play this year. And, we could sit here and talk about he has a chance, he doesn't have a chance to play. Who knows? Who really knows? We didn't really think Doodles would have a chance to play his first year, but came in and was the best tackler on the team and was all over the place.
Yeah, right now it's speculative at this point, but it's going to be amazing to see these student athletes because you recruited talent, and that's the thing is a lot of these players seem to have the raw talent. And so you never know who's going to be the one that comes to, fall camp and just is this shining star that you may not have expected.
Well, it happened last year. I know we got into camp, and John Nordsey, for instance, was a walk-on for us out of Brookings, South Dakota as a true freshman this past fall camp, and comes in and just starts making plays and is showing a lot of physicality. Ended up earning a scholarship through fall camp. Another guy like Jason Rouse out of Angleton, Texas this last year comes in to fall camp as a true freshman, starts shoving people around, playing with a ton of aggression. We're like, holy cow, this kid might be ready to play, and he played quite a bit for us this year. There is one more student that I wanted to touch on. I didn't touch on my quarterback, man, Jackson Miner.
Oh, my gosh.
Jackson Miner at Golden Valley High School in California. Jackson 6'1", 215. What we did is we offered our top 3 quarterbacks on our board, and Jackson jumped in right away, committed before he took his visit. Him and his dad came up on the visit, and it just solidified everything. I really enjoyed to get to know Jackson and his dad. We had a good time throwing snowballs around at campus. And, I'm really excited to see his impact on this team. He's a really phenomenal quarterback, and so he'll make us better.
Perfect. And that's the goal. That's the goal, right, Coach?
Yeah, we just got to keep getting better, Colton, every day. And, making sure that we're investing in the guys that are here, and we're still paying attention to our recruiting needs. They say recruiting's like shaving, right?
You got to keep going at it.
If you don't do it, you look like a bum.
That's amazing, Coach. And, I think you also pointed out something, too. It doesn't just stop with them getting, signed. It's constantly a process. It's constant where you got to think about the recruiting, but you're also still a coach here, and you got to focus on the student athletes that are here. I think that's something that gets overlooked on signing day is like, yeah, this is amazing, this is great, but we're still focusing on the students that are here currently. So, no, Coach, thank you for taking the time and going through all these athletes, these amazing athletes that we're so excited to have as a part of the Yellow Jacket family, and really we couldn't ask for anything better. So,
my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Coach. And that'll do it for us from Inside the Hive. Again, if you have anything that you want to find out about Black Hills State University Athletics, be sure to go to bhsuathletics.com, where we have all the signees as well on the website. And we also have all of our full schedules and everything there. Also, be sure to check out our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have everything. From Inside the Hive, we just want to say, go Yellow Jackets.
This has been a Black Hills State University Athletics production. Fear the Sting.